Good morning, everybody. Welcome along to Sunrise Daily this lovely Friday morning. I'm Chamberlain also.
It is also a beautiful Friday morning, right? Hey, welcome to Sunrise Daily.
And I am Akine. Good morning and welcome.
Well, guys, yes, we all know it was. Nobody likes to lose any loved one, and then it's a lot more challenging if the nation has spent a lot in those kinds of personnel. If they're doing a service for the country, such as these gentlemen who were involved in that Air Force plane crash. Shocking it was to the entire country. But here is what happened while they were being laid to rest.
A day of sorrow and tears as the Nigerian Air Force buries 7 of its officers at the military cemetery in Abuja. The arrival of the Minister of Defense and other service chiefs signaled the commencement of the event. Taking his message from the Book of Lamentations, the chaplain of the Nigerian Air Force encourages the wives, children, and family members of the departed officers to look up to God.
The Commander-in-Chief and the President of our country is in pain. The nation as a whole is in pain. How could these gallant, vibrant, young, promising young men pass away this way? It is a moment of darkness and gloom. It is a moment of cry. It is a moment that only God himself can reach us.
In an emotion-laden voice, the Chief of the Air Staff salutes the supreme sacrifice of the young officers.
These intelligent and disciplined young officers and airmen flew their quota of ongoing surveillance mission in the northeast, northwest, and more recently in the north-central over Niger State and its environment, in connection with the concerted effort to secure the release of the staff and students abducted from the Government Science College, Kagara, Niger State. The loss of these confident, courageous, professional young officers and airmen must spur us not to only rededicate ourselves to the service of our nation, but also to resolve that we must relentlessly expose and fight all agents of destabilization and extremism in our society.
A minute's silence is observed.
To so rest in perfect peace. May we please have our seats. Thank you.
One after the other, the bodies of the late officers are lowered into their graves amidst tears and wailing by family members. With the bodies committed to Mother Earth, wreaths are laid, followed by the firing of 21-gun salute. Like a bad dream, grieving family members, officers, friends, and colleagues depart the National Military Cemetery as the late officers begin their final journey to their Creator.
Two things stick out for me in this that we have just heard. You can't even begin to imagine the effect of the loss of a spouse. You can't. If you've not been there, you can't even begin to imagine. What's going to happen to those spouses? How are they going to explain to their little children that their dads are no more? You can't even begin to imagine. It's only if you have walked that path that you will understand. The second thing that sticks out for me is that line in our national anthem, "The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain." How do we ensure that? Would they have needed to take that trip if there was no abduction in Kagara, Niger State? Maybe under some other circumstances, but on this one, would they? What are the lessons to learn to ensure this does not happen again? That's where we are right now. Cardi.
It's really sad, like you said, and I mean it's not enough to just watch this and feel sad, and I mean you know how it works. People move on easily. The next moment you're latching onto something else, and we've moved on. But this is meant to stop us in our tracks and help us just look back and say, how did we miss this? Now, this is not banding around blames, but we need to do right by them, their family members, and their memory as well. There's so much that needs to be done in the armed forces that we can pay attention to. Recently, I saw a video of from the theater of war, and I saw young men that have, you know, literally said, I've dedicated my life to Nigeria. They were injured during the attack, and I could hear them calling for medics, and it was really sad to see that. And I think that what we can do, I mean, listening to the Chief of the Air Staff speaking was quite emotional, but clearly there's a lot more we can do to do right by them. Like you said, if that abduction had not happened, they probably wouldn't have had to take that trip in the first place, but it has happened, and we know that the best we can do, definitely, is to do right by them. It's really emotional, but Markwe.
Gentlemen, you know, fundamentally for me, at the bottom of all of this, I mean, at the bottom of all that we currently face as a people, as a country, the security challenges that bedevil us currently speaks to our identity as Nigerians. You know, who is a Nigerian? What is a Nigerian entitled to? You should listen to our pledge. I already made reference to our national anthem and the labors of our heroes past. But we all used to recite with glee the national pledge. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity. These were words that we just said as children and maybe as young adults without even really understanding the implication of what it was that we're saying. Right now, we're faced with issues that continue to bedevil the country, where people seem to be leaning more towards ethnic, you know, cleavages, or cleaving towards more their ethnic groups than, you know, talking about the unity of a country. These men did not have a choice. They swore to defend this country, even when, you know, fundamental issues are tearing at it. And one of the things we're seeing right now is in the abduction of those children whose rescue they had gone to see, you know, what can be done about. And I don't know, somehow this accident happened. I think that the least we can get is, first of all, an investigation, which hopefully will be made public. What happened to that aircraft? Did it really run out of fuel, or was it something else? That's one. Fundamentally, I think that investigation needs to be needs to be open so that people can have closure to know what truly happened to their loved ones. The second is, I mean, the grief is right there. Oftentimes when we talk about the sacrifice that these men make, or men and women make in uniform, yes, they are the ones who give up their lives, but ultimately it is their families that continue to live with the sacrifice, or who continue to pay the sacrifice. It is that child that would grow up without a father or a mother. It is that child or the spouse who's going to go to bed every night knowing that, you know, my spouse is gone and I have to be father and mother for a child. These are the ones who truly make the sacrifice. Do we make their sacrifice worthwhile? Looking at the list of VIPs who were there, we saw, I think we saw the Chief of Air Staff, we saw the Minister of Information, and we also saw the Governor of Ekiti State. And I asked myself if it was only one of the 7 officers who died, was from Ekiti State. What about the other 7 officers? What about the governors from their state? They didn't think it was important that they attend such a ceremony. What about presidential, some people can argue that the chief of air staff being there and the minister for information, but I would want to see a bit more. These deaths of our servicemen are becoming more routine, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be that when it happens, we feel a sense of loss as a people, and we should show that more and more in the sort of support, in the outpouring that we show at ceremonies like this. They're not just ceremonies, they're also a statement, that as Nigerians, we support, we will be there for our servicemen and their families when, accidents like this or when incidences like this occur. We need to continue to ponder that Nigerian question and see how we can answer it at every turn. Gentlemen.
Well, may their soul rest in peace. We hope that, just as you said, that investigation, many will be looking to see how that goes on. Well, we'll have to move on now. Take a look at what the dailies, how they reflect development. And Vanguard leads with security-related headline. Buhari rules out amnesty for bandits, insurgents. And then look at the writers. Northern governors caution southern counterparts, leaders against unguarded utterances. Afenifere, Adebanjo, Agbekoya, Masob, Pandev blast northern governors. Will react appropriately. Southwest Governors Forum. So, there you go. That's what you find on the front page here today. It is the big one. And then, of course, emotions at burial of Air Force officers. You'll also see that here today, the lead story on the front page. And then you take a look at what's on the back page. You've got Vanguard Sports there. Eagles open camp in Lagos. Battle Benin March 27. Don't hesitate on Barca deal, Okocha tells Salah. Whoa. Okay. There you go. Okocha also says, Ronaldinho copied some of my skills. I like that. That's Vanguard this morning, guys.
We'll take a look at Daily Trust. Lead story. In rare access to Enclave, bandits speak on ravaging insecurity. And, there are some interesting statements from that one, but you find more details on page 5. And right under that, you see Buhari vows to deal with criminals, warns against ethnic profiling. We'll take a look at what the parents of Kagara boys are saying. We're helpless. Now, deal with criminals, it means different things to different people. So what will this dealing be? Well, we'll find out.
The Guardian newspaper is also leading with a security-related story. Buhari insists on military action against insecurity. You must act fast, Sultan warns. Northern governors, elders resolve to tackle al-Majiri as well as bickering. The story continues on page 6. This one, year after first COVID-19 case, Nigeria tests 1% of population. Other details are right there on the inside pages of the Guardian newspaper this morning.
1%?
Just 1%.
Wait, that's 20 million. No, that's 2 million actually. So.
2 million would be...
Yeah, that's 2 million.
Yes, that's 2 million.
Oh, goodness.
Markwe?
Well, we can see right there the next paper for you. News Direct has this one, 2021 budget. CBN backs federal government to sell moribund assets. Disburses 499 billion to 499 billion naira. I think it's very important to put the denomination there. To 15 interventions in 3 months. That's also on the front page. You see there, PDP leaders made Fani Kayode amid alleged defection. Politics playing there. Plane crash tears as NAF buries officers. You also see the picture there to support that particular story. And SARS, police killed my brother, shot me 3 times, as according to a petitioner in Osun State. So that is still going on. And a number of other stories there which I'll leave you to do. But that's it for News Direct, Nigerian News Direct.
Take a look at Daily Independent next. With rising oil prices, FG sees reduction in borrowing. After all, who will pay if you keep borrowing that way? How do you pay back? Says Nigeria's total borrowing stands at 32.9 trillion naira. To use supplementary budget to fund COVID-19 vaccines. And then at the bottom strip of that Daily Independent, Nigeria on the brink of collapse, Catholic bishops warn. So you may want to look at that much later. That's Daily Independence today.
Well, for the Nigerian Tribune, the lead story is the Kagara abduction. And FG has abandoned us, Niger governor. And you see pictures from yesterday's burial. But quickly, on top of the nameplate, you see that one. Nigeria needs more borrowings to roll out infrastructure. It's coming from the finance minister. So,
Two opposing views there, isn't it?
yeah. And a couple of other stories from the Nigerian Tribune.
The Blueprint newspaper is still talking about insecurity. Bandits speak from forest. Okay, you want us to use the appropriate word, but that's not what Blueprint used this morning. We want Buhari to lead dialogue. Say herders not treated as citizens, and on and on and on. That's what you have on the front page of the Blueprint this morning.
Well, you find on the front page of Leadership Friday, no amnesty for bandits as PMB orders sustained onslaught. All eyes are on you, Sultan. NEF tells northern governors, and you also see this, governors have waded into Mohammed Autumn Field. That's according to El Rufai. You find details on page 4 of the paper. A number of other stories. COVID-19 varsities battle with enforcement of protocols in hostels, lecture halls. That's also there on the front page of Leadership Friday. Let's leave it there for the paper.
All right, so there you go. And then some of the governors have said they're criminals, terrorists, and who knows? Well, that is it. We did look at some of the dailies this morning. Well, we know that Sanu did call off. They used to call off suspend. So now they suspended that indefinite strike. All right, so let's get some brief word from Comrade Mohammed Ibrahim, who is the national president of SANU, about that release of theirs yesterday. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, your release is circulated about the suspension of the strike. So, what's the implication of this? How have those concerns SANU raised been addressed now, and if not, to what extent? Good morning, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so tell us, the suspension of this strike, does that mean that the requests that SANU tabled have been addressed?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. We met with government severally, but it culminated into signing off an MOA. This time around, of government officials. MOA stands for Memorandum of Action. And the takeaway this time around is that most of the issues we have tabled have now been given definitive timelines. And we are hopeful that such agreement will see the light of the day. And there are some actions also taken with a view to sorting out the most pressing problems, especially with regards to the mutilated salaries of our members, as a result of our joining IPPIS. There is an active committee of which I'm a member, and the committee has already started work, and we have collated all our issues, and the committee is working on them already. And I want to confirm that government has shown some level of seriousness this time around, and we are hopeful that we will not be disappointed.
Well, that's comforting to hear, but what's the assurance that this time around it's for real and we'll not come back to this table in a short while from now?
Well, I think the onus of making sure that we do not have to go back to this cycle is on the government itself, because for us, we have listened to the voices of Nigerians and especially our teeming young men who are the students and also the parents. We would have remained adamant, but because we are a reasonable and responsible set of people, we have felt that keeping this strike too long may be counterproductive to the development of the country. And because government also has seen reason to, put up an MOA, Memorandum of Action, and not the usual Memorandum of Understanding, we are hopeful that the music has changed and the dance steps should also change.
Well, you also talked about, that government has shown some measure of seriousness. Government showed the same measure of seriousness in 2009 or thereabouts, and then the call at the time was suspended or called off, whichever one, and those agreements were tabled. So what are these levels of seriousness that you have seen from government that's giving you the certainty that this time around it's for real?
Yeah, if you put it on a weighing scale, the sign of seriousness government has shown now cannot be commensurate or the same with the one in 2009, because I've just mentioned that part of our problems is the issue of the mutilated salaries that our members have been suffering, since February last year. And the issues were that some of the allowances that they were supposed to get, were chopped off completely. And before we even signed that agreement yesterday, a committee has been put in place. And that committee is chaired by the Director of Higher Education, the Federal Minister of Education. And it has the representation of the Director of IPPIS and the Office of the Chairman of the Salaries and Wages Commission. And then the unions are represented. Like I've said, I'm a member of the committee and we have started working. And we have collected all those people, those of our members in NASU and SANU that have had these problems, and that we have got definitive timelines that within which these problems will be sorted. Hitherto, this was not the case. Committees will be formed, unions will not be represented, and therefore we will not be able to hold them accountable to what is happening. But for now, we are there. And if for any reason we realize that there is a snag or there is a cock in the wheel of that progress, we will bolt out and we will let the public know. And this is why we are saying that we are hopeful that the new vigor put in by government in solving this problem will be sustained, and that we wouldn't have to go back to the trenches again.
All right, comrade, we do thank you for your time, and we hope that all of this is sorted as you have indicated. All right, we're back in a moment. Stay with us. Well, as you see there, Captain Umar is back with us this morning. Captain Ali Umar is a former army officer and the CEO of Gold, Water and River Sand. Good morning. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning.
Well, I haven't seen where we are. There's, of course, lots of expectations. Everybody wants a solution to all that is going on about the insecurity challenge. So from your position, looking at, from what you have seen now, what's your assessment of how we're approaching this matter this time?
There's been a slight difference in the approach. And that difference is clear, simple. We have the might, we have the capacity, and we also have the will to enter our security threat options as they abound and make a statement. And having made the statement, it is now up to them to come to the table or not to come to the table. However, having shown that might, having shown that will, that capacity, as you saw in Marte was taken, and within 72 hours, it was back. And how did we achieve that? The same forces, the same people. You saw a difference in how things were done. The chief went there and explicitly said what had to be done. That was the deliverable. He gave a timeline. And there was what we call a concentration of efforts. You saw air-to-ground liaison. And there it was done, result. So basically where our quandary lies is with our politicians. Our politicians tend to want to go to heaven, but then they don't want to die. We cannot indulge criminals with negotiations all the time. We don't have the resources to keep doling out millions in hundreds to itinerants and outlaws. So how do we do it? How do we combine force, brute force and soft force, and come to a fruitful solution? It's simple. A former American president once says, to negotiate, you must do so from a position of strength. And to do so from a position of strength, you must go to the negotiation table with a small voice, but you carry a big stick. So basically, the army itself is subject to civil authority. But then let our civil authoritarians or authority have no doubt that we have an army that can either bend or break our threats. It's now left for our threats to lead in between the lines and exploit and make use of what the state governors and the forums are trying to do to ameliorate the harsh socioeconomic environments that tend to push people to these extreme options of crime.
In other words, I mean, that singular action of Marte, and then with what we've seen by the political actors may just be sending conflicting signals. So how, still talking about the how now, how do you suggest we further reconcile that action in Marte? Because if the CNC, since we have new service chiefs, do they need any telling to continue from where they've left off, routing criminals, terrorists, who at least some governors have said, these are terrorists who have infiltrated different parts of the country? Shouldn't they approach it in the same manner?
Whether they're terrorists, bandits, herders, one single line of what I call similitude they share is they're dangerous. They're dangerous to whoever they come across, party, tribe, religion, regardless. Now, you have to understand something. What you see the president saying is not unusual. For the average Nigerian out there to understand, I'll use a very, very mild analogy. Way back when I was young, I step out of line and my dad wants to eat me up. Then my mom comes up and says, you know what, you don't kill my son. But that does not mean my mom supported me. I learned my lesson knowing that there is that big dad who is ready to eat me up. So if the president wants to eat them up, it's not out of place. And if the governors are saying, Your Excellency, just leash the dogs a bit, the army, let's see what can be done this way, it's also not out of place. So it's left for those in that ugly business to read between the lines. Marte proved the point. We can do it, regardless what anybody thinks. the state has to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, or conversely rather, if you look at the dynamics of these bandits and militants and insurgents, they have no reckoning for president, governor, professor, doctor. That's not what commands attention in their world. In the underworld, in the jungle, it's about brute force. Their leaders are not revered and feared because they were elected. They muscle their way even amongst their followers. If you want to understand it, go into the area boy community around Lagos, and you find out that their prominent head is not the head because he has degrees. He's the head because he's feared. The day a more gruesome one comes up, he'll knock him off and go. So the only language that you can use to actually register superiority with these people is equal or superior force. When you have cleared every doubt of theirs that you are up to it, then you can now come and say, let's negotiate. That's when you go to the negotiation table speaking with a small voice, but carrying a big stick, not before. Right now, what we do is they seem to actually hold the bargaining chip whenever we negotiate. And if you continue to do that, it goes from negotiation to indulgence. We are not negotiating, we just indulge in them. So what am I saying? We need not spread all over the country to do these things everywhere. All we need to do is to make a very good meal of that one opportunity wherever it shows up. And that way we set a precedence, that way it becomes the new normal. That listen, whatever you are doing, we have the capacity to either bend or break you.
In other words, those governors or whoever that have been seen negotiating with those bandits or terrorists, they're putting the cart before the horse.
Not really. More like they have overstretched the negotiation option. I don't want to use the word abused. The negotiation option is now 2 for 10 kobo. You see, when you go in to negotiate, there's nothing bad with it. But you don't go in to negotiate cap in hand. And that's always the way it is now. We're going cap in hand. And if you do that, it's akin to indulging an already spoiled child.
So how do they draw the line?
They draw the line, as I've said, by a mix, a healthy mix of the two. Let the insurgents get a very good feel of what our security agencies can do, while on the other hand, the governors are also waving the olive branch. It doesn't have to be this way. Why don't you take this option out? It's that straightforward, it's that simple, until there is a severe option that is going to drive them to the negotiation table. We cannot negotiate from a position of strength.
We've heard the military, at least they've been quoted to have said some time ago that they were not involved in any of those negotiations that were carried out. If that were the case, should they be involved in it?
Of course. I'll tell you something. If me, for example, if you had to negotiate, if you had to involve me in that process, I'm not going to go in there think, I'm not interested in what you are discussing. What the military will be going to the negotiation table to do is absolutely different from what people think. They're not going there to fight. Of course, it's a negotiation ceremony. But there are things we have to glean off the persons we are negotiating with. Call it intelligence. I wouldn't go into the nitty-gritty of it. But they are useful. They need to be there. Psychologists need to be there. A very good psychologist can sit down with you, look at your behaviorals, look at your inflections, your intonations, your pitch, your voice, your shoulder positioning, and just draw a conclusion on who this guy most likely is. So, and if we get your character assessment, then we can begin to look at what your Achilles heels and your underbellies could likely be.
Because I was going to ask, I mean, all of those back and forth between governors about security and then the action we've seen in Marte, does he have any impact when maybe persons other than the president speaks about matters like this? Because yes, they have the new service chiefs. They've got their charge. He's charged them to go out there and do what you have to do. So when they comment, does it have any impact on the action of the military?
Yes, it does. And that is where a lot of education, a lot of induction have to be done, particularly on our governors. From the way our governors speak on security matters, I doubt if at inception, after the oath taking, I doubt if there is a national intelligence induction that is meant to actually put them through the do's and don'ts of communicating with the public, particularly as far as national security is concerned. So you see leaders of thought, politicians coming out to say things that on the other side comes across differently. Yes, we know what he intends to say, but the way he puts it out comes out differently. There's one thing, communication is two-way. The man listening and the man speaking. Now, that is very key in this fight against insecurity in Nigeria. Somewhere along the line, just like negotiation has become indulgent, somewhere along the line, the operations, for example, in the Northeast, have also tended to become in the psyche of the average Nigerian military. No, the military can do it in a particular way, and then there are other sister security and non-security agencies who must key into that counter-terrorist mode in the Northeast to support and drive the successes the army achieves. I'll give you an example again so the average listener can connect with it. COVID-19. COVID-19 started, and over a period of time, through last year up to date, you've seen society key in from their different levels to drive the successes of ensuring we are safe. Schools, churches, leaders, you mention it. Everybody is playing a role, even corporate brands. Everybody is actually buying into driving the successes from their own different angles. So it's not about the hospitals, for example, buying in to do what they need to do COVID-19 wise. Then you have the schools not observing protocols, the churches not observing protocols, and what have you. The hospitals and the doctors will fail. The same thing happens with the armed forces. While the armed forces are holding the military angle of it, other sister security agencies also have a blueprint. There must be a blueprint. In northeastern Nigeria, counterinsurgency mode, this is what you must do. They should also be encouraged to say, how do you see yourself driving our successes? Because if you do not do that, then the shepherd will just walk in futility.
It would seem there's some confusion, from what we're seeing as to who is meant to do what. Listening to the governor of Niger State saying, well, we're not getting support from the federal government. And I can imagine the federal government saying, well, we provided the police for you, so what else do you want us to do? So in terms of who should do what, you mentioned some form of intelligence induction for governors beforehand, but they have advisors. People who advise them on how to go about these things. So, when the rubber hits the road, don't forget those people abducted in Niger State are still in the camps of the abductors. We heard recently that they said that they were going to starve them to death. So as these talks, the back and forths continue, there are people who are actively, at the receiving end of these attacks and abductions. So who should do what in this case, especially with this Niger governor saying, we've been abandoned, the police were sent, but we're meant to bear the cost. So who should do what, really?
My governor in Niger State says he's not getting support from the federal government. Well, that's one way of saying it. I will prefer in my own head to say, can you itemize exactly what support from the federal government will mean to you? What he said is akin to people who come and say he's not carrying us along. When I hear dissidents saying he did not carry us along, I would like to say, okay, what should he have done that would have carried you along? So when we say he's not getting support from the federal government, fine. if you're not getting support from the federal government, what are those itemized aspects of federal government involvement that you would call support? Now, no case scenario. Let's assume those things are not there. What do you have in your hand? What can you do at your level, and have you done it? When you look at that school shouldn't actually have people there. I never thought that was a school. It looked more like an abandoned, dilapidated building. And for crying out loud, Niger State was a sitting duck. My governor has military background, so I'm not going to spare him here. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. We're all products of the same communities. Niger State was just waiting to happen. We had these people hovering around contiguous border states. When they showed up at Tungamaji is in Abuja. What did they do in Tungamaji? They went from house to house plundering food supplies. And when they were done and had enough, they now moved some young teenage girls in their numbers and off they went. When you see these people behave like that, from my position, that act simply tells you they are preparing to camp. That's what they need the girls for, to meet all those offices of nature that all of us know, and to also have them cook for them. So where would they camp? They want to camp somewhere proximate to the FCT. Probably they want to be coming in to harass people in the FCT and moving. So that was, Tungamaji was a warning order for the governor. Fine, if the federal government suddenly drops off radar, fine. What are you doing within your own enclave about it? Now let's talk about all these public schools that seem to be so decrepit that they cannot but become targets or soft targets. Let me take you back to the United States in the 40s, shortly after the economic depression of 30... Sorry, my dates are failing me. But in the 30s, America had an economic recession, and that affected everywhere, including schools. And what did the government do? The government did what we did in Nigeria in 2005. Nigeria just merged banks to make fewer, stronger banks. That's what America did. Said, okay, within Niger State, you know what? Put these XYZ schools together. Let's bring fewer, stronger schools so we can fortify them. Now you can say the students will be so many. Yes, there will be so many, but in the 70s when I was growing up, we used to have 2 sessions in schools, morning and afternoon. They are not permanent. They're temporary, pending when you now get your feet properly on the ground. And that's where the healthy mix of brute force aggression and olive branching comes in.
When you say that Niger State was just waiting to happen,
Indeed.
You saw the signs, so you're not quite surprised. Are there other states that are waiting to happen?
Yes, indeed. There are. I'm not here to raise alarm. We're all in a state of dire insecurity. So if you look at what is happening in Niger State right now, and you look at Tungamaji, and you just take a map of Nigeria, you discover that Niger, Kogi, Nasarawa are actually 3 places where these people will want to look at. Niger itself comes in favored because it's big, it's wide, largely Sahel savanna. If you're going towards Kogi, you're going towards the confluence, there is more water, so vegetation is thicker. These people are nomads. They are not used to the kind of vegetation you'll find in Kogi, Nasarawa. They are nomads. They may not blend easily with the kind of people you find in Kogi, Nasarawa. So Niger State was tactically and also, if I want to say strategically, just feasible. Now, while we are saying this, the governors who tend to be arguing with each other about the nature, the form, the persona, and what have you, of these situations will do a good thing to just form a shadow, I don't know what to call it. Is it a shadow group? People have to sit down and think like the threat for you. Most of the things I know is not because I'm there, but I just take a perspective and consider myself a bandit and look at the scenario and profile what we know about them. And as is scientifically proven by our psychologists, if you focus on something for a period of time, it expands, it decomposes, you begin to see it. So that is just it. How many governors have a shadow team that is meant to do just that for them? No, we are looking at it from our side of the table. No. Enter the bandit's head and look at your state through his eyes. What you see is what you come back and start working or preparing for. That's it.
I'm a little concerned, Captain Umara, that you know this and you have just stated it to us now, that there are others that are as vulnerable. In Niger State, for instance, that you have mentioned, it happened back to back. My question here and confusion is, why do these things seem to catch us unawares? And then when it happens, we begin to scamper. If we knew that Kagara was going to happen, was there anything that could have been done to forestall it from happening? Now, there are definitely, just as you said, other risks lurking around somewhere. Is it that we are not aware that these things are going to happen, consequently catches us unawares, and then we begin to run around?
Largely, no. It's not that we don't know, but what seems to drive us are two things. One is habit, okay? Lethargy, as in lethargy. We call it on the streets, they call it fire brigade approach. Lethargy has become part and parcel of us. And the worst offenders here are the public service. If you want to know what I mean, try to get something done, something you can do in 5-10 minutes. Could take you 15 months to do it. I mean, you know what ease of doing business in Nigeria is like. So what can we do in this situation we found ourselves in? That is where our leaders, political and administrative, especially in the public service, will begin to drive the successes of the fight against insurgency. Results. You saw what happened in Marte is a microcosm of what can happen in all aspects and ramifications of our existence as Nigerians, whether military, civilian, or what have you. You saw the chieftain come out and tell his people, I'm here for this purpose, I have this time frame to deliver, and these are the resources on ground. Let's do it. What forestalls that before is, again, what we used to call nothing will happen syndrome. And indeed, nothing happens. So people take cue from the body language of the lead. And the Chief of Army Staff, as I know him way back from when I was a junior officer, is not the kind of person you want to do that with. He has a lot of fire in his tummy. Right from when we were junior officers, we know those of them who don't cross lines with. He cannot afford the luxury of indulging you. That's not to say he doesn't motivate you. He does, but you got to earn his motivation. It's not free of charge. So you saw what happened, and he didn't just go there. He went in with them. The service chiefs, good enough now, are cosmates. And one thing about cosmates is we can look ourselves in the eye, we argue and disagree, and still remain cosmates. Now, what I'm trying to say is all over Nigeria, there is this force multiplier in what I want to call physical and active applied motivation. It takes nothing from anybody. It doesn't have to be a soldier. It could be a commissioner. It could be anybody. How many of them do you see coming down to square zero to say, what's happening here? Let's go and do something. No. Everybody sits in his hallowed office and issues verbiages. If you do that, people are going to slip off on your assignments. You must do follow-up. You must ask for feedback. And that's the way you lead people. And believe you me, Marte can actually become that prototype, not only for the armed forces, but for everybody. How do we drive the successes? How do we sustain or maintain the momentum so we don't end up getting one and 3-4 months down the line we have to come back and get, get what we got? Shouldn't be that way.
Well, that should be a food for thought, and perhaps everyone needs to focus on that so that we can achieve such results in different other parts of the country moving forward. Thank you very much indeed for your perspectives this morning, Captain Aliyu Omar, former Army officer and CEO of Goldwater and Sands. Always a pleasure having you around.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, back in a moment. Stay with us. Well, still continuing taking a look at security. It does affect everybody, but now we've got Jamilu Aliyu Chacharanchi, who is the Northwest Coordinator Coalition of Northern Groups, joining us from Katsina. Then we also have Oladotun Hassan, who is the Chairman Coalition of Southern Groups. He's a legal practitioner and President of Yoruba Council of Youth Worldwide. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you both for joining us today on the program.
It's a pleasure to be on.
All right, Jamilu, let me start with you. Yes, there were, well, first of all, you know, last time we spoke some months ago, you were not exactly happy with how the state actors were approaching the security challenge that the country was facing. So has anything changed for you?
Well, actually, what happens, or what is happening today, is that we are in the sorry stage. A sorry stage in the situation that when we discussed with you the other time, I told you that there are every tendencies that this history may repeat itself. And it is unfortunately that it repeats itself in Kagara today. Who knows actually what is going to happen tomorrow? What we are seeing is the way or the audacity with which these armed bandits carry their arms, move freely to terrorize towns, to massacre people and kidnap other peoples. It left you with a question: the willingness, the readiness, the sincerity, and the capacity of the government to deal with this issue. So when people are talking about where will Dr. Gumi intervene, you just have to ask yourself that is a vacuum that has been created by the government. That's why some people have to intervene. Some people are talking from far places without actually knowing what is happening in our region. We are living in a situation whereby in each and every day, if not even every hour, people are being killed, people are being kidnapped. And the readiness or the performance or the response from the government is questionable, because we are not seeing how the government will just allow people being terrorized just like this. So that's why so many people are playing from different angles and begin to intervene into this issue so that at least they will see how can they, if there is any tendencies to negotiate with these bandits, they have to do that. And these governors are left with no option, in the sense that these are the people that are being killed on daily basis, and the report directly came to them. And they are politicians. Some are willing even to go for second term and other things. So they have to do anything humanly possible to ensure that they protected their people. What is happening, come to even the Katana state, where we see that there are a little bit peace. Today, the story is changing gradually. If you go to Sabwa, if you go to Faskari, there are so many places, or there are so many villages that have been displaced. The people are not even there. They even forgot about being there at their communities. So what is happening actually, we cannot say, because what we see is the deterioration in every aspect, socially, politically, especially in terms of security. And the security agents are everywhere. If you come to Katana, you will see so many armies everywhere. But what is happening? In fact, I had even an audio from this bandit who kidnapped the people from Kagara. He was saying that the armies are there in Kagara, but is there any shield or a wall that protect them from entering into into this bush? Let them enter into the bush and see if they can do anything. These people are moving with impunity as if they are exempted from law. These people are moving as if they are moving in a place where the government doesn't even exist. They are moving in a place whereby they think that they are the authorities rather than government being the authority. This is the situation we're in. So sometimes when I see people commenting or trying to make some observations or some resolution over this issue, I wonder if these people are actually living in the areas that this thing is happening. When someone begin to stand over TV or over a radio and begin to say this is how things should be, this is how things should be, let him come down to the grassroots and see what is actually happening. Let him come to the grassroots. Even the Minister of Defense himself said that people should come out and do this and do this and do this. Let the minister come down to the villages and see if he can do what he is asking people to do. These people are moving in hundreds, and in hundreds with sophisticated weapons all over them. And these people, in fact, when they move in hundreds with their sophisticated weapons, they even have the belief that the authorities cannot challenge them. How do you think that in a situation where people are living like this and you expected them not to do anything that is humanly possible to ensure the protection of their lives? So when people are coming to why Gumi intervenes, I do ask myself that did these people actually knows what is happening in northern Nigeria? So it's a vacuum. Had it been the government didn't fail woefully in securing our lives, Gumi wouldn't have been intervened. But Gumi had to intervene based on the sympathy he has for the people, based on the actual fact he knows that these people are being killed on a daily basis, based on the belief that almost all northern Nigerian peoples have that government cannot do anything to these people because the government signifies it. Because we believe that action speaks louder than voice, but is the government action speaks louder than its voice? They always claim or plot victories over media. They always say that we did this, we did this. Somebody is even citing an example with Marte. If the army or if the government knows that something is going to happen, why at the initial stage government allow the thing what happens in Marte to happen? And later on they come and claim victory that okay, now Marte is secured. Why will you even allow at the instant when whatever happens in Marte happens? How many people are lost? How many lives are lost? How many lives are wasted? How many properties have been destroyed?
We'll come back to you to shed some more light, on some of those matters you've raised. But let's equally get Mr. Latoto Hassan's perspective on what he thinks is going on and how these things are being handled, whether he's satisfied or not. Mr. Hassan, go ahead.
Well, I believe the situation being raised by Mr. Liu is not a sectional issue. We've always failed to address the issue of insecurity from the prism of a more ethnocentric issue. This is more a national issue that rests on the fulcrum of our nation. As of today, we have been depleted literally, we have been depleted socially, our lives are being foretold by some groups of terrorists working with arms and ammunition, unimpeded, not prosecuted or charged by any jurisdiction, calling for negotiation at the expense of lives that were being lost, claiming to be victims of extinction when they've categorically extinct millions of lives. Today, Nigerians are now thrown into an abyss of confusion. Yes, because institutions are not respected. That is why individuals like Sheikh Gumi will come to the media, give all the necessary reasons for terrorism to thrive. Because the nation sovereignty rests in the government that we invest our vote in. The government has no excuse. It's an act of omission on the part of the government, which has sworn before our constitution that they will protect lives and property. But today, there is excessive failure in the land. Whereby today, where is our terrorism law? The anti-terrorism law is not having its place in the prosecution of these bandits. Where is our firearms law? It's as if the weak skin of the wielding of firearms to the four eyes of the global community today is a huge pain on our integrity as a nation, meaning we're a worthless nation that thrives on anything good.
Okay.
As of today, we have the ECOWAS Treaty. The movement of herders from every other regions must be regulated by immigration laws. But as at date, both cattle and human are moved without caution. So,
Okay, Mr.
so
Hassan.
many issues.
You've raised, some important points, but we'll also try to, review your audio because it's been quite challenging getting you to pass across your message. But let's take this back to Mr. Charanchi. And, listen to Mr. Hassan. He has spoken about laws. And he says, well, this is not a sectional thing, that if we're to attack this, then we need to do it together. So when you imply that it would seem the government has abandoned the people, which is why we've seen, alternatives like negotiations, amnesty with the bandits, just to ensure that there is some peace for people to carry out their daily activities. But how do you balance this with the laws? Take it, for example, the abduction in Kagara, where a student was killed. There is a law against not just abduction, there is a law against murder. You can bring up the different charges. So how do we factor this in? Because this is a nation of laws.
Well, I believe there will still be a continuation of Kagara, of Kankara, of
Mr. Hassan. Pardon me, Mr. Hassan. This is for Mr. Charanchi. We'll get you to also respond to what he says, but let's get his response first.
Okay. Well, actually, we all believe there is laws that are guiding this land. And these laws of the land must be respected. But in a situation whereby the authorities that are supposed to ensure the respect of this law fail to do that, people, I don't think that they will just allow themselves to be murdered or being killed on a daily basis. They have to create another alternative that they will save their lives. And this is exactly what people, why I'm even talking about from the northern Nigerian perception, because that's why I am more conversant with. And that's a place that I actually knows what is actually happening. I don't think there is any human being who has the human conscience, who has the human belief, who believe in service to humanity, that will see how people are being killed on a daily basis and without given an option to bring an end to this menace. If the government secured the people, if the government protected the laws of the land, if the government enshrined the use of, because the fundamental of every government is to protect the life and properties. In a situation whereby the government itself failed the constitution or feels that it isn't supposed to respect the constitution, so you cannot tell the citizens whom has been killed on a daily basis, murdered and kidnapped, and tell him that he has to respect the laws of the land. The laws of the land surely must be respected. But in a situation like this, one has to bring an alternative for him to survive, because the law can only be even governed. The law can only be even existent when people are alive. In a situation whereby people are not even alive, what laws are you talking about? We are talking about survival here. We are talking how to defend our lives. We are talking about life here, life in particular. So how do you think that even there will be a law when there are no people even to respect that law? When there are no people even to respect the constitution? The people who even made the constitution are not there. The people who are going to even review the constitution are no longer even in existence.
So are you confident
telling you is that the situation in northern Nigeria is so critical, is so devastating, that is going on daily basis. These things are happening. So
the question will be, Mr. Charanchi, so the question will be, are you confident, if you can hear me, are you confident that these alternatives that are being followed through with, the negotiations, amnesty, are you confident that they will bring lasting peace in that region?
Yes,
because like Mr. Hassan said, it's Kagara today, it was Kankara yesterday, it might be another place tomorrow, and this cycle might continue.
Exactly.
So are you confident that this will bring lasting peace?
What I'm saying is that actually, if the amnesty can bring peace in Niger Delta during Erado's administration, and the same amnesty was given to the bandit repentant during the last administration, I don't think there is any reason why you would say that the amnesty cannot be granted to the bandit, if at least they are willing to. All these issues or all this process are just window dressing. But the holistic reality is that government should stand and do their efforts. Government should do the needful and ensure that they bring this thing to an end. But in a situation like this, definitely we must do something to ensure that we safeguard the life of our people. And this is exactly what people are doing from northern Nigeria. We are just trying to ensure that we safeguard the wastage of life on a daily basis. Today, in fact, there is even news. I had a breaking news by the BBC Hausa today morning that I think there is an abduction in Zamfara state of these students. So are we just to keep on moving like this? We cannot just be going like this. What I'm saying here is that, let me just state it categorically clearly, that there is no doubt about it that President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has failed in securing the life of people, particularly those in northern Nigeria. So let me just advise Mr. President. Mr. President, please, we beg you for Allah's sake, if you know that you cannot challenge these issues and you don't have the order, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the belief, you don't have the willingness, the readiness to challenge how things are happening in this country, please and please, we advise you that let you respect as yourself and resign from the seat of the president and allow those people that are willing to do it to come and do it wholeheartedly with all sincerity of purpose.
Okay, Mr. Charity, let's take this to Mr. Hassan. Let's take this to Mr. Hassan now. Well, I believe the president is listening. But Mr. Hassan, regarding this issue of amnesty, yet again, the comparison with Niger Delta is coming up again. So how does that sit with you?
Well, I believe we have always been used to this cosmetic fire brigade approach in resolving issues. If Niger Delta issues were frontally addressed from the issue of economic survival and delivery of dividend of democracy, empowerment of the youth, delivery of jobs and healthcare and housing needs, and everybody is okay. There is no section of this country that will kowtow us into this undue influence and duress of clamoring for amnesty at the expense of criminality. I'm not a fan of the call for amnesty for these terrorists. Let the issue that have of the Niger Delta is still rearing its ugly head today because they've been found with a lot of financial augmentation to really review their frontal views that they can waylay us. This is economic sabotage. This is more of seeing us from a prism of a failing state. We are already becoming a pariah state where laws are no longer holding its weight. For us, I will not call for the resignation of Mr. President because it's a total failure as a governance from the federal to most of our governors. You see governors just chanting war-mongering songs. You see local government without no capacity. It's as if governance structure is collapsed totally. So for us to rejig this, we still need to go back to this same failing constitution that is binding all of us together. This inequality will continue to be when our threat is being championed by ethnicity, bigotry, or religion, animosity against each other. But I believe strongly the issue of insecurity is very important. And we have proposed several bills to the National Assembly from the point of the Nigeria Youth Coalition, which the Coalition of Northern Group, which is my brother there, the Coalition of Southern Group, and all other youth leaders have been discussing way forward. How do we rebuild? Let us propose the National Youth Development Right Law. Let us propose the National Joint Regional Security Network Agency. If the OPC in the Southwest, the ISBA, and everybody jointly support the civilian JTF in the Northeast, who would have won the battle and join the Nigerian army to succumb this evil. But because
so Hassan, just hang on a minute. Let me bring in Jamilu because yesterday, I think the Coalition of Northern Groups, they had a press conference. They were talking about amnesty, which you already referenced in passing, and then they equally spoke about stopping supplies down south. But what informed those comments? And don't you think that it's going to send conflicting signals to the country or other parts of the country when we're all trying to see how we can solve this challenge out?
What will be more conflicting? What will be more conflicting than shedding blood, innocent blood, just because they are living in their region? This thing just happened few days ago or few weeks ago. Some people just because of a minor problem that can easily be solved, even between 1, 2, 3 people can be solved. But these people just tend to, even this problem is escalated just because of the political interest of some other people that they just want to jeopardize the reason. Or they think that this is the only way that they can come at the center 2023 or whatever it has been. So the approach we are given is not a violence approach, but we are sending a signal that, okay, something is wrong. All the concerned
Which people are you referring
all the concerned bodies. The people from the southern part of the country. What happens in Shasha? This is what we are referring to. What happens to Shasha? What happens in Aba during the NSAS protest? What happens to even the Fatako during the NSAS protest? What is happening is that a slight problem in the southern part of the country, the people will just go into killing innocent people that they don't even know what North even is all about. Some people were there over 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 80 years of age. They were there. They were living. They were born there. Their fathers were born there. Their grandfathers were born there. But they are just the ancestral of Hausa community. But when a slight issue raised in that region, they will just begin to massacre, kill people, destroy properties, and do all these things. So that's why we said the association of these people who travels, what do you call it, from northern part of the country, food stop and other things from the northern part of the country, they already made a statement that they called on all their members that they should stop moving the food stop from the northern part of the country to southern part of the country until this issue is addressed holistically. This is what we are saying. And what we are saying is that we back this association, we believe in them, and we believe that the strategy or the method or the way or the approach they took toward this issue is an approach that will bring a lasting solution, not only to the northern people, but to the entire region, or to the entire nation. So that's why we said it. And the issue of amnesty, as I told you, if you can grant an amnesty to some peoples and you believe that works, so let us also apply this method to us to see whether this method also will work or what. So Mr. Hassan is talking about it's an economic issue. If you can grant amnesty for the sake of economic issue, why wouldn't you grant an amnesty for the sake of life issue? Because it's only when we have life that we will talk even about economy.
All right, let's get Mr. Hassan to respond as well. Mr. Hassan, what's your impression about what he just said?
Well, I believe it would be, it's a nomadic idea for us to shut down food supply from the north to the south, as if it's only the southerners that are living within the southern region of the country. It would be so foolhardy for a section of an association, just like if they shut down, let the Niger Delta also shut down their oil, let the Southwest shut down their human resources, capital, and every other supplies that is the business that is thriving. Who will survive at the end of the day? This type of divisive tendencies, what I believe it's a scripted idea that will not have a way in the 21st century Nigeria. We are too sophisticated nationally now. It is beyond what we are facing as that date is a critical issue. I've raised it from the point of patriotism, of being patriotic Nigerian, not as a sectional leader or as a leader of Yoruba. I am the chairman of the coalition of Southern Group. We have the Agric Economic Zone program already, whereby over 50 million youth are already in our farms. They will produce the same thing the North to supply us. We'll get the cattle the North will serve us in a space of few months from now, or days from now. Why will anybody threaten our market? Why will anybody kowtow us to 475 billion compensation? What happened to that woman that was raped in Ekiti? What about the woman that is raped in Enugu? The people that are killed all around in our farmland, who pays their compensation? If NSAS issue is to be brought, then if it's a private thing, let everybody approach their insurance company. But if not, let the federal government sit with all nationals for a dialogue. It is a whole lot of issues have been said about the constitution, restructuring, and all that. We'll continue in the garbage in, garbage out, and appropriating and reprobating syndrome. But for me, I'm telling my brother there, your problem is my problem. If we both see the problem as common, if you continue to see the issues from sectional point of view, that until you shut down food supply, that will be hellish to those farmers, those peasant farmers in the north who suffered year in, year out of drought out of threat of this same bandits and now survive to have their produce for sales, and somebody saw their killings in Kogi or in Benue. Where are these associations? Did they go to the head of these farmers? Then why are they now bringing confusion? It's as if somebody somewhere just go to CAC, register an association, and call himself president and begin to address. We have had over Syria Mieti Al Association today that they are causing confusion to the nation, and they ought to have been charged for sedition. At the end of the day, the federal government, I believe such an organization that have thrown such in the media ought to be arrested for economic sabotage, because this is treasonable offense for somebody to kowtow the federal government that have invested billions into agricultural produce that the Northerners have to import to the South. It is not their prerogative. Well, the Southerners are not also lazy. So let us see it as a national problem. Let us see
Mr. Hassan,
insecurity.
You know, we'll go to break, but gentlemen, we need to talk about solutions. And we'll take it from that perspective when we come back in a moment and get your concluding thoughts as well. Join us in a moment. Welcome back. Well, gentlemen, we'll be winding down now. But Jamilu, if young people have complained and residents of different parts of the country have complained that state actors or government is not living up to expectations, and then that they're filling them with their narrative, so should we be seen as being part of the problem? Shouldn't we be talking about solutions rather than aggravate the problem or stoke perhaps reaction from different parts, because the communication coming from you or from CNG may come across to certain people in the South as though, wait a minute, I thought young people are supposed to be seeking solutions here.
Well, just permit me to just make some clarification to Mr. Hassan regarding to the shutting down of Association of Food Stop supplying to the southern part of the country. If NLC, if ASU, if NASU, if SANU will go on strike until issues are resolved, I don't think there is anything wrong by this organization called to their members to go on strike until issues are being addressed. One. Then, well, actually, what is happening or what all we are seeing today is as a result of the failure of the government. The government failed to discharge its responsibilities. And as young people, the government succeeded because of the hardship, economic hardship we are in, because of the security situation we are in, because of even lack of food security we are in. The government has succeeded in creating some divisive in our minds, in the beliefs that I belong to this region and I belong to this region. We, at the level of the coalition of Northern Group, we don't even believe in that. What we believe is that we must work towards a united Nigeria. But while we are working towards united Nigeria, does not mean that the country must be at our expense. That is particularly people of the Northern Nigeria. If these issues are going to be addressed holistically, realistically, with all willingness and sincerity of purpose, the coalition of Northern Group or the people of Northern Nigeria don't have anything or lamentation over that matter. But to run Nigeria at our expense, this is what will not be accepted. I also want to refer to Mr. Hassan. When Sunday Iboha was moving around Ibadan and other environs to terrorize our people, to kill our people, when our properties were destroyed, I didn't hear his voice complaining that why would these people be destroyed? When it happens in Ava, where was he? But we, at the level of the coalition of Northern Group, when it was happening in southern part of the country, we came out boldly to tell our people that there should be no reprisal attack in northern part of the country. And thank God there was no reprisal attack in the northern part of the country, despite even the humiliation we have received from the people of the northern part of the country. But they believe and they agree with us. That's why there is no reprisal attack in this country. Had it been, we made a mention that there should be a reprisal attack, what do you think that the country will be at now? We believe in united Nigeria, and I don't think there is anybody who believes in this united country than the people from northern part of the country. So what we are saying is that if we are going to live as a united country, let us live as a united country with all sincerity of purpose.
Perhaps it's a good time then for maybe you and Mr. Hassan may need to exchange numbers so that we can begin to foster this bond once and for all. But I want to ask you a question, Mr. Charanchi. How are these people recruited? And what do you think we can do to stop that? Because definitely they came from somewhere.
didn't get you.
I said, how are these bandits? Clearly, they are being recruited by some people. These criminals, these terrorists, whatever we want to call them, how are they being recruited? Any idea what is it that makes them vulnerable to go into these kinds of activities that they go into? And what can we do to stop that?
So that's why we are saying it is high time to reorient these people. Let them have reorientation. Because whatever it is, maybe someone has tampered with their psyche.
Just a moment, just a moment. This is after the fact. But in order to ensure that this does not happen again, because as the governor of Kaduna State said, you can't, go ask these same people to go back into earning 1,000, 2,000 naira a day when they have tasted what it means to earn the big bucks. But in order for us not to even get there in the first place, how, in your opinion, do you think they are being recruited ab initio before they become what they have become? Because if they have satisfaction previously, they won't have to go there.
Well, actually, what happens... Well, actually, what happens at the initial stage is that these people have been abandoned, as if they are not even part of the country. They have been abandoned in a situation whereby they don't have even the Western and the Islamic knowledge in the northern part of the country. These people, they don't even have the social amenities. These people, it reached to an extent that these people are being extorted by both the security agent, judiciary, and the traditional rulers in our communities. These people, it reached a level whereby when these people are moving with their cattle, they even reach a situation whereby they don't even have the cattle. So if there is any people, or there are anybody, or there are any institution that instigate all these things to happen, I can tell you that traditional rulers must be blamed. Security agents must be blamed, and judiciary also must be blamed. These are the people that when they go, or when they have a slight case and they decided to move into either the police station or wherever, or judiciary, or to the traditional ruler, they have been extorted to an extent that they have to sell their cow to go and rescue themselves, or to go and get at the bail of their brother. So this is what puts them. But previous administration has even tried. The previous administration has even tried by creating a nomadic institution. And this nomadic institution, shamefully, was held firstly by the northerner. But what this nomadic institution did, they did nothing. This nomadic institution, nomadic education, and other things, they abandoned these people.
Perhaps this is calling for some attention. Yes. This has also been communicated by some other leaders previously. But let me take this back to Mr. Hassan. Now, first of all, what do you think of what he has said? Because if that kind of thing happens in the South as well, I don't know what's going to happen. So what do you think we can do to resolve these vulnerabilities of people going against the state, so to speak?
Well, I believe I've raised it earlier, and I'm still continuing to raise it. My brother over there and all other northerners are having this psyche of we are the masters, they are the servants. We cannot run a country on a master-servant relationship. We are all equal. An issue of this magnitude occur.
Well, Mr. Hassan, sincere apologies, Mr. Hassan. We just the volume just faded off, and we couldn't make out what you're saying. But I'm afraid it coincides with when we just need to wrap it all up. But hopefully, your messages, gentlemen, have been passed across. Jamilu Aliyu Charinchi is a Northwest Coordinator, Coalition of Northern Groups. He joined us from Katsina. We also have had Oladotu Hassan, the Chairman, Coalition of Southern Groups, and also President, Yoruba Council of Youth Worldwide. He's also a legal practitioner. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Well, just before we go, we'll have this piece of news coming through.
This is Channels Television's breaking news.
Oh yes, we understand government have kidnapped students of government secondary school Jangebe in Talata Mafara local government area of Zamfara. Well, the Commissioner for Information did confirm this to our correspondent, and that's Honorable Sulaiman Tanal Anka, the Commissioner for Information, and he says that the gunmen stormed the school at about 1 a.m. today and abducted a yet to be confirmed number of students, and that they will get us, or we will get you more information as we get it. But yes, at the moment, news coming through indicates that gunmen have kidnapped students of government secondary school Jangebe in Talata Mafara local government area of Zamfara State, and that unspecified number of students were kidnapped at about 1 a.m. today. But we'll get you more details on this matter as we get them. Well, moving on now, we've got Mr. Olajide Odioye, who is the General Manager of LASMA. He joins us right here in our studios. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, when this particular video, I think it was your man who recorded it anyway, I suppose, because I see them record time and again. Was it from your team?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Incidentally, I was also at that particular spot for about an hour. Earlier on in the day before the team stayed back just to ensure the one-way going on that
So
bridge.
tell us, what happened in this scenario?
Well, what it is, if you understand the trip from the international airport, Murtala Mohammed Airport, going towards Oshodi and Ilupeju, you would have to fly over the bridge to link up with the Apapa Oshodi Express Road. And so from the fire that happened a few weeks ago that stopped the route from those coming from the express from the Isolo side, going towards the airport, so that bridge is closed for repairs because of the fire incidents. And so what has happened now is like motorists, in trying to avoid having to go all the way to Antony Interchange to come back on themselves to go to the airport, they decide to make immediate left against traffic on the bridge. And that is that section of the bridge coming down, facing traffic coming from the airport. And so this guy, like very many other motorists that have been doing that in the past few weeks, had come down as soon as he's seen the enforcement officers preventing that one-way violation. Instead of now coming out and talking to them, and it could be educated, made aware, or it could be arrested depending on what's going on then, he now decided like he was going to make an immediate reverse and find a way to escape, which is very typical of most drivers in Lagos who violate traffic rules. And so in doing so, the police officer attached to LASMA, standing behind him to capture what is going on, unfortunately got trapped from the reverse mode that the guy engaged himself in, and he threw him over the bridge. And we thank God that the training of the police saved this police officer that's involved in this incident. He landed on his arm, which is now seriously broken. We thank God that he did not land on his head because the canal below is concrete-based. Although it has water, it could have just landed anywhere else, and that would have been the end of his life.
Oh, is he alive at the moment?
He is very much alive. In fact, he's been discharged from the hospital with a broken arm, so he's opted like he needs to seek more local intervention to reset his bones.
Wow. Well, if you look at some of these scenarios, I mean, just as you said, that this happens on a regular basis. Could it be that even when they are approached nicely, they still do this and endanger the lives of everybody who's there?
There's nothing called, the offender, especially the willful offender, would always decide to escape from being caught. And that is the truth of the matter. In fact, this incident is really nothing to someone like me. It's something that I witness every single day. It happened to me last year. And in fact, it happened to my PA about 3 weeks ago. And the same thing happened. We caught a lady in Magodo doing a reverse, going one way. We stopped her just to talk to her like, you can't do that. Out of desperation, she put a car in reverse and everything. She was going to run me over. And then, because I stepped aside, she put a car in reverse and ran over my PA's legs. He's going to hospital every single day right now. I don't even have someone working with me. But this is what we face daily. If you see a downfall driver or yellow bus operator, and you see him facing traffic on Ikorodu Road with 3 lanes and everything, just know he has done something. He's trying, officers are trying to apprehend him to stop him from misbehaving. He's decided he's going to endanger the lives of his passengers, and he will do anything to escape. That's just typical.
Well, you know, we'll talk about that part in a bit. Your job and the job of all those officials across the country who are in traffic is not easy. I mean, I know being in the country is not exactly easy as well, because you need to survive a lot of things. But, you know, there are cases where you're on the road and there's no indication, there are no signs whatsoever that this is one way. And you know, people just, I mean, I don't know what percentage, but that has happened once or twice, maybe more than once or twice. So what is being done to ensure that those kind of scenarios don't exist? Because I know, you know, when initially the last month started, there was that narrative that, well, when innocent people just unconsciously or mistakenly go through one way, rather than the officials to be there to say, no, don't go through this route, this is against traffic. They wait for you to get in, then they pounce on you. How do you respond to that?
Chamberlain, you're quite right, but the story has about a few legs. Typically speaking, if someone knows they're violating willfully, they are ready with the stories. And more than likely, they are aware and they would lie when they're being caught. And then generally, there are those who are not aware, and the absence of traffic signs to say this is one way or banned turns, that can confuse a few motorists. I totally agree with you. And the government also needs to step up its responsibility to make sure that there are no ambiguity in terms of understanding the road use at any time. However, having said that, another leg of it is that those who willfully wish to disobey traffic signs will go in the middle of the night to go and remove those signs.
What?
And when they are caught, they will come out and say, well, I didn't see the sign. There's so many things going on in our environment.
Wait. That happens?
Oh, of course, absolutely. Oh, that happens all the time, all the time.
Say.
So sometimes you just think, how many more signs do you have to pay for? Although that's a responsibility, but they will go and remove the signs so that they can prove I wasn't aware that the government did not do this. It happens all the time.
Okay, wow. That's a bit mind-boggling, just imagining the extent of that. But, I mean, 2 issues for me. Watching that video, I believe you've seen that video time and again, there must have been some lessons for you and your men in your everyday conduct. Because, I mean, thankfully, the policeman is alive. I mean, some say it could have been worse, like you said. It could have been much worse. And, I mean, last match trended on Twitter yesterday with a lot of people weighing in on what they saw, how this could have been done better. What about technology? How about you have just smart cameras to capture the plate numbers and all that? Different suggestions. But what lesson really did LASMA glean from this, such that moving forward, maybe things could have been done in a different way, such that the lives of your men and women will not be put at risk?
Well, I'm glad you said that. Of course, the technology is the way to go. Our governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, it's very, very on top of that. He approved the deployment of technology for us to improve our communication last year to 2020. This year, we're definitely hoping in the next few weeks to start what you would say non-approachable offense dealings. That means we're going to be having body cameras and officers to capture incidences, because things happen so fast and you don't really have time to say, okay, let me get my camera out and everything. But if you have your body camera on that is recording, then you can capture all sorts of different things that you can use against typical offenders.
Some officials are the guilty party.
Well, if you're having a body camera, so if you're talking to someone and you switch your camera off, that is an alarm bell. That's something, you're doing something that you needed to hide. And we do investigate and we sort ourselves out.
Okay, you had mentioned in passing the yellow buses.
Yeah.
So what is being done about that? Because they can be reckless, I tell you.
Well, what is being done by the government is to improve steadily according to the first agenda or Governor Sanwo-Olu's theme agenda. The number one project there is traffic management and transportation improvement. Buses, as you would perhaps have noticed, more buses have been put into the system. A lot of bus terminals are being built. A lot of labours are being built. So you're gradually going into a system where a lot of motorists may decide not to use their own private cars and rely on the unregulated bus system. The yellow buses at the moment are not regulated. But steadily, from what I understand, is that we're going to find a way to phase out the yellow buses and the keke mawas as a means of public transportation in Lagos. Because really, the reason why I feel, or that I understand the way they behave right now, is because it's a private entity. And anyone can just buy a bus, demand 10,000 naira a day in returns. The bus driver is under pressure. He misbehaves because he's competing with about 75,000 other bus operators, and he needs to make the 10,000, make enough for himself, pay for his union dues, pay whoever he needs to pay, maintain the vehicle, and that is serious pressure on a daily basis. And that's why they behave the way they behave. It is not acceptable, but we're where we are. But once Governor Sanwo-Olu kicks in and everything else in terms of like alternative mode of transport, public transport, that is the rail system, and the water system, water transportation, improve on that, a lot of people would see improvement on the mobility and transportation issues in Lagos State.
Well, perhaps this question may sound somewhat, but perhaps one way to look at it would be to prevent rather than to fight it, so to speak. Lagos is always going to have traffic because of its small size and big population. So could it be, because there are perspectives that some people will be taking and saying, perhaps it's because the law, people are trying to avoid the law, avoid being arrested because the laws, the repercussions of breaking the laws are so draconian. What do you make of that?
Well, you can look at that in two ways. For what we are or what we can be in our own particular environment. If the consequences is affordable, then a lot more people can choose to offend. And the other end of the spectrum, if it's too expensive, then some people will do everything to escape being punished. And so some kind of balance needs to be struck. But policy-wise, where the government is going is that the way we drive in Lagos or the way we drive generally in Nigeria is not an acceptable norm because we endanger other road users who are also vulnerable. You see, the car, in a way, is a weapon, and a lot of drivers use the vehicle as a weapon to injure others who do not have a car. And so that attitude and behavior of superiority over a public space needs to change. If we change our attitudes and the numbers come down in terms of like incidences and serious injuries and deaths on the road, surely our leaders, the national, the Assembly, Lagos State House of Assembly members will look at it and say, okay, maybe this is time to relax the punitive measures that is already in place.
Well, clearly, something needs to change and change fast.
Surely, I totally agree with that.
Speaking about punishment now, I mean, the driver, we hear he's been arrested and all. What's his fate now?
Well, the fate is according to what the law says. I mean, from what has happened, from what you've seen in the video, he may not have willfully wanted to kill someone or injure someone. All he wanted to do was to escape. But in so doing, he has to be responsible for his actions. I didn't change the gear for him. You didn't change the gear. He put the gear in reverse when officers are around him. He didn't care about the safety of anybody else around him. He was just thinking about himself, and that's a willful action. And his fate remains according to the law. That what has happened could have been a murder, but right now that's going to be attempted murder.
Has it been charged to court?
Absolutely, it has been charged. So it's going to be charged on two fronts. So it's going to be charged by LASMA system on the issue of violating one-way system. And then the police who are responsible for criminal matters will certainly be looking to charge him for attempted murder. Doesn't matter because he's an officer or not. What has happened that we're seeing in front of us is attempted murder. And the warning needs to be struck. and for people to understand that, listen, if you've done something wrong, whether it is deliberate or not, if you're being caught, the best thing is just relax yourself, find a way, what's going to be the consequences, not be looking to kill anyone.
When you talk about relaxing yourself, that can be a little challenging. For instance, well, first of all, we've seen some of your men, incidentally, the police too, who, when perhaps there's an incident on the road, they listen to you, they're cordial when they do that. But there's a very huge percentage who are just there for revenue and don't care, and they are very,
aggressive.
They could be very aggressive and very hard and ill-trained. What are you doing about those?
I buy into what you've just said. It's something that happens all the time. But when it happens, we investigate. I've come to your station and I've repeated over the time that, unfortunately, we're in this environment as it is. There's so many reasons and angles where you can begin to determine how did we get here. But we are who we are sometimes, and some of us are just bad elements, and some of us do not know how to change to be better citizens. Even where you're wearing uniform, you're representing the government. That is the truth. But the point remains. LASMA as an agency has over 4,000 officers. The majority, and I'm talking about serious majority here, are serious professionals, down to heart. But doesn't mean I'm going to make an excuse for the few percentage that are giving the government and the agency a bad name. But my advice to our listeners and viewers is that just try your best not to violate. It's as simple as that. You reduce the percentage and the chances of any officer trying to molest or extort anything from you. Just do your best. If you do not have a driver's license, don't get on the road. If you don't know how to use the roads in Lagos, just stay at home and use BRT or call Uber. It's not a must that everybody must drive. A lot of people who are on the road right now driving don't have a right to be there. They don't have any moral grounds to be driving, be behind the wheel. And that is the truth, because they have not been trained properly. They've gotten the license through the back door. And so this conflict is likely to continue as long as we have motorists who are violating every single day. And so you have enforcement officers out of pressure, out of frustration. I give you an example, Chamberlain, right? Try go to any one of our bus stops. A LASMA officer is not empowered to chase passengers from the road to go into the bus stop. Because even when you tell them, and I tell them all the time, they're not going to listen to you. They're looking to confront with you and abuse you. So a LASMA officer is just going to think, you know what, I don't have time for these ones. I'm going to chase the downfall drivers. But then, who is creating the avenue for the downfall driver to be picking up passengers on the road when the passengers themselves are creating the instances? So it's a double jeopardy, and the pressure is high.
Okay, there are some issues which we unfortunately can't address, because when people are arrested, they think that the mobile courts don't just give them any fair hearing when cars are impounded, cars are sold, and all of those kind of challenges, which perhaps we'll try and see if we can sort that at a later date. But if you can, in less than 30 seconds, what is the situation with the closure of the Third Mainland Bridge?
Well, the situation right now is tidying up is going on right now. Final road markings will be put on the areas where they've walked upon. That's why it's going to be closed for 24 hours to make sure that everything is set up for us to start enjoying the bridge from 12 midnight on Saturday. And so we're back to normal. But I must warn, a lot of roads are penned down for construction. Wow. The Faloma Bridge is there. It's one of those. And the area of Bonicam. So there are lots of things going on. So it would be nice for your viewers to understand that it's an ongoing process to make sure that we have the roads that we deserve, and so that our vehicles do not end up in the garage because the roads are bad.
No pain, no gain, they say.
That's correct, sir.
We do thank you for your time, and well done. And as you continue to strengthen and smoothen everywhere else, thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get some comments coming through, guys. What are people saying now?
Victor is interested in the conversation we just had.
Okay.
So he's talking about signs. I was informed that on Ogulano Drive, Interior Road Junction, the sign indicating one can turn right on red was removed. Can we get it back? Because I don't turn on red, and people behind me always honk and insult me.
Well, when they honk and insult you, stand your ground. Be on the side of the law.
Be calm, right? Well, Yomi Williams says enforcement of traffic laws has gone beyond physical control. Technology should be leveraged on. The LASMA officials could be equipped with smart cameras and scanners. It could be like a button, creating sins and endangering lives should be avoided.
Well, Henry says, that should be Henry next, right? Okay. It says it's obvious that whereas state officials are merely scratching the surface, state-sponsored negotiators are opening new frontiers that lead to nowhere, and activists appear forever divided on way forward. Which way then do we follow?
Well, Manasseh Allen is proffering one way. He says there is nothing we versus them here. It's a clear case of failure of governance, and we don't need ethnic and religious bigots to start painting it like some people are against them. We are all against bandits, so we're against the bandits and bad leadership. That's all. I guess if we're agreed on that's a underpinning one. You know, we're all against bad governance and bad leadership, and we want safety and security. It might be a good place to start. Let's ponder on that as the weekend comes. Thank you so much for watching this week. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, it looks like it'll be a long weekend, but thank you for joining us. I'm Kaido Kikiolu.
Don't forget, stay safe. COVID-19 is still real. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And as much as you can, don't violate the laws. You don't want your cars impounded and sold, do you? Or don't call Ayo. He doesn't work in last month. All right, we'll see you next week. I'm Chamberlain. What's all?